So first, what is seduction? Well, seduction is, I guess, contrary to popular belief, seduction is not necessarily sexual. Now, I need to explain what I mean by that. Seduction is an overload of your emotional brain and a deadening of your logical brain. So here's how this works. Your brain has two different major hemispheres, and they basically control, one controls emotion and one controls logic. The problem is they share resources. So if you're being very logical, you're not being very emotional at all. So if you've ever been in a position where you're very, very logical about something, you probably noticed you can make kind of hard decisions that otherwise would have been kind of emotional decisions, and it's easy for you to do. For example, firing someone, or making a purchase decision, or whatever it happens to be. If you're logical at that moment, then your emotional brain. Now it's also the other way around. If your emotional brain's heightened, you will make really stupid decisions sometimes, and usually very emotional decisions, because your logical brain is deadened at that moment. So if your emotional brain is very heightened, your logical brain is deadened. So when you go through rapport, which is the second stage of an interaction, you are heightening the emotional brain in a woman and in yourself, to be honest. And what you're doing there is you are exciting that emotional brain so much that their logical brain starts to drop down. And when it drops down to a certain point, they begin to make emotional decisions. Now, there is a certain point at which a woman's logical brain will drop, and when it gets past that point, they hit what's called a red zone response. And this is where if they get too emotionally excited too early, before they build a lot of trust, they will automatically reject an entire situation, you and everything having to do with you, and they will leave because they're afraid they're going to make a bad decision in that moment. And so what you want to do is you want to keep her emotionally heightened, and usually that's as simple as sharing an emotional story. That emotionally heightens women, and also, like I said, it's nothing to do with sex at this point yet. You're just going to start to share your emotions and draw out her emotions and try to transfer that. So once you get through rapport, you can build this connection, this strong emotional attachment with each other. Then you are assured that she has a heightened emotional brain. Now, what this means is that once you add sexuality into that situation, you have seduction. And seduction is basically that heightened emotional brain, a deadened logical brain, and any kind of sexual context added in. And that's what creates powerful seduction. So if you just try to walk up and inject sexuality, it's not going to work. If you just try to walk up and build emotional attraction and build that emotional space but never inject sexuality, that won't work either. So what you want to do is you want to do both sort of simultaneously, or at least one right after the other, so that you have that heightened emotional brain and you add that sexuality. You can build sexual attraction by thinking about things that turn you on sexually. So this would, again, you want to wait until you're having an emotional conversation with the girl before you start to do this. You can skip steps and you can actually do this really early if you know what you're doing, but I wouldn't suggest doing that yet. It's sort of an advanced technique. If you are having that emotional rapport conversation and you start thinking about something, for example, thinking about whatever turns you on, man, whatever it is. I mean, if it's seeing a girl bend over, if it's, tits, just think about whatever it is and start to get turned on yourself. And as you're having this sort of normal conversation and you start to get turned on, her subconscious mind is going to start to register your dilating pupils, your slightly clenched jaw, your straightened neck, all the things that your dropped shoulders, all the things that you do whenever you are attracted. More things that she's seen in patterns when guys have been sexually turned on in the past, she's going to see in you in that moment. And because you're doing that while you have that emotional connection, she's going to be open to it in that moment. So you're going to be touching as well, obviously, and when you get to the stage of seduction and you're touching, you're going to stop taking your hands off of her. You're going to start just touch. When you want to move your hand from her shoulder down to her hand, you're going to slide it from her shoulder to her hand. That's another very important thing to know. You're also going to bring back some of that playfulness. Try looking at her mouth often whenever she's talking, whenever you're talking. It kind of looks like, just like subtle dropping down of your eyes, looking at her mouth like that, just very subtle. And she'll start to pick up on all these things subconsciously. Now, you don't want to make her as consciously aware of the seduction, though I have done that, and it does work, to be honest. Once they're in the stage of seduction, there's really nothing they can do to resist that if you do it properly. So that's why I think it's really important that you take full responsibility and you don't bring someone into seduction that doesn't want to go there. And so what I would say to do is to think about something seductive yourself that turns you on while you're talking about something deep, and emotional. You want to look at her mouth often, kind of go back and forth between her eyes and her mouth often when you're talking. Touch her in a more soft and sort of sexual way. Your personality is going to be that of a man now, and less of less of a friend and less of a boy having fun. You're going to be more manly and more powerful. When you touch her softly, but firmly. Don't have a limp wrist or anything whenever you're touching her. But don't squeeze her too hard or yank her toward you or pull her toward you or anything. You want to make sure that you're still being soft because she's delicate. She's a woman, You want to make sure that you don't overpower her too much in a negative way, or else she won't feel comfortable with you physically. The whole point here is to make her feel comfortable with you physically, emotionally, and sexually, all at the same time.
Would you like to be a stud with the ladies?
Oh yes, please.
Then just click the link in the description below. It won't be free much longer.